Hey guys, here we are at week 6 of home groups. God has been doing some amazing things in our hearts, and I pray that we all continue to press in to what He is speaking. On Sunday, I read through Isaiah 54 verses 2 through 4a, where God calls His people to enlarge the place of their tent, to prepare for the increase that He was promising. In this time, you see, Israel was in the middle of Babylonian captivity, where their guilt, their shame, and their doubt of their promised future were all at its highest. And through the prophet Isaiah, God reminded His people to enlarge their tent, even at this low time, because God wasn't going to break His promise. As the people of God who are being called to rise, I believe you and I are also being called to enlarge the place of our tent. In other words, we are all being called to increase our capacity for the increase that God will be bringing. Here's some points that I mentioned on Sunday. Firstly, we must never claim to arrive. Paul, one of the most influential apostles and highest religious scholars, wrote in Philippians that in all of his experience, he could have claimed to arrive, to have enlarged his tent enough. But he wrote that it was all nothing compared to the surpassing knowledge of Christ. There's always more to learn, more love to give, more people to reach. Secondly, we have to grow with what we got. In God's call for us to enlarge the place of our tent, sometimes we won't have every tool we think we need, but we are called nonetheless. What we see as lack, God sees as abundance. Thirdly, we need to expand our boundaries. Sometimes the outer territories of our tent can be unknown and intimidating, but God is calling us to pioneer into areas some people aren't willing to go. And lastly, we need to widen our welcome. People, you see, are welcomed as wide as our arms are open. And I believe that in the process of enlarging our tent, it's about time we widen our arms as wide as the heart of God. In all of these things, at the end of the day, God is really calling us to increase the capacity of our hearts, to enlarge the tents in our hearts so that God can shift our perspective and the furniture in our hearts to see these things the way He sees rather than the way we see it. If it is really time to rise, then it's time to enlarge the place of our tents.